Hi everyone, welcome to today's roundtable conducted by the History and Culture Cluster here at CMES. I'm Harshita, and today's roundtable topic is focused on attacks on the Indian Parliament. The recent parliament breach that occurred on 13th December 2023 sparked a lot of conversation between a lot of netizens regarding the breach itself and also connecting the breach to the original attack that happened in the parliament in 2001. So we just thought it would be a good conversation for us to have in today's roundtable, discussing the ramification and the impacts and um, understanding the greater issue of security in within the members of the parliament. With that being said, for the sake of decorum, I request all members participating to raise your hands if you wish to answer a question. With that being said, let's go on to the first question. The first question is: the 2001 Parliament attacks were truly a horrifying event and was carried out by five terrorists on 13 December 2001. Who were the primary perpetrators and what were the ramifications and after effects of this attack? Would anyone like to answer it? Okay, Aryan, you can go ahead.
Uh, can you guys hear me? Is the mic good? Okay. Right. So the recent parliament breach, which occurred exactly 22 years ago on the same date, brought back memories of the 2001 parliament attack, which was mentioned, which was following a major security breach inside the Lok Sabha assembly. Two intruders threw smoke canisters into the Lok Sabha hall recently on December 13th. And though Wednesday's attack was all smoke, the 2001 attack saw actual exchange of fire, blowing up of a suicide bomber, and many other fatalities as well. The 2001 Indian Parliament attack was a terrorist attack on the Parliament of India in the national capital of New Delhi on 13 December 2001, and all the five attackers were killed by security forces throughout during the actual terrorist attack itself. Now, the firing itself lasted for about 30 minutes, which left, as I mentioned, five terrorists and eight security personnel, including a gardener, dead and 15 injured in total. Now, almost immediately, Indian authorities accused the terrorist groups Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, which are two militant groups operating from Pakistan, of perpetrating the attack. However, out of the two, the Lashkar-e-Toiba group denied their any involvement. Following this, an FIR registered by the police on the same day of the attack. The Delhi police arrested Mohammad Afzal Guru, a former Jammu and Kashmir Liberation Front militant who had surrendered in 1994. They also arrested his cousin, Shaukat Hussain Guru, and his wife, Afsan Guru, and SAR Gilani, a lecturer of Arabic at Delhi University. Now, the three main perpetrators, Guru, Gilani, and Shaukat, were all sentenced to death, and Afsan Guru was acquitted by trial court on December 29th of 2001. Gilani was acquitted in 2003, while Shaukat was sentenced to 10 years of rigorous imprisonment in 2005. In 2006, September, the court ordered that Afzal Guru should also be hanged. Now, following this major horrifying event, it led to increased tensions between India and Pakistan, which are already simmering in the previous decades leading up to the attack, which finally culminated in the 2001 to 2002 India-Pakistan standoff. Now, almost immediately after the attack, world leaders and leaders in India's immediate neighborhood condemned the attack on the parliament, and almost immediately, at the 14 December 2001, the National Democratic Alliance blamed Pakistan-based Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed for the attack. The same day, in a demarque to the Pakistan High Commissioner to India, Ashraf Jahangir Qazi, India demanded that Pakistan stop the activities of LET and Jaish-e-Mohammed, and that Pakistan apprehend the organization's leaders and they curb the financial assets and the group's access to these assets. In response to the Indian government statements, Pakistan forces were put on high alert on the same day itself. Finally, on 21 December, India mobilized and deployed its troops to Kashmir and Punjab in what was India's largest military mobilization since the 1971 India-Pakistan War, which, of course, as I mentioned, led to the 2001, almost a year-long India-Pakistan standoff as well. So, yeah, these were the major after effects of this 2001 horrifying event.
Thank you, Aryan. It's interesting to see how something like the parliament attack, that I think now is not as much as talked about or even focused on, at least in today's political generation, to see the amount of ramifications and after effects that took way after it. So, yeah, that was really nice to hear. And it's horrifying, but it's good to know. Second question is, the recent parliament breach occurred on the 22nd anniversary of the disastrous 2001 parliament terror attacks. Briefly summarizing the breach, can the two events be compared to a certain extent, or are they both simply isolated incidents? Would anyone like to answer? Okay, Sabi, I can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So, like Aryan already explained in brief, I'd like to explain it a bit more. So, on the 22nd anniversary, a few days back, on 13 December, the parliament witnessed another breach of its security. The incident occurred in the Lok Sabha in the new parliament building. So, basically, what happened was that 0 hour was going on, which is the time when members of the parliament can raise questions and issues of urgent public importance. And as these proceedings were coming to an end, the Lok Sabha members saw two people jumping into the Lok Sabha chamber through the public gallery carrying gas canisters, which obviously didn't seem like gas canisters because of course it caused a lot of chaos and confusions because as soon as they entered, one of them was seen leaping over the benches and tables where the MPs were supposed to be sitting, and he released the canister that was emitting some sort of yellow smoke, while the other was chanting some anti government slogans and slogans on unemployment and other issues as well. According to Gurjeet Singh, who is the Amritsar Congress MP, at first it seemed like a bomb. So he ran towards one of the men with the gas canisters and snatched it from him to run towards the security exit and handed it over to the security staff to get it out of the building. So ultimately, these two men were overpowered by the security staff and the members of the parliament, and a total of four people were arrested, two from inside the house and two outside doing similar activities near Transport Bhavan, which is adjacent to the parliament. Later on, it was found that after some investigation, that it was Pratap Simha, who is a BJP MP, who was responsible for issuing a visitor's pass to the intruders. So this is naturally seen as a major security lapse in the parliament, and it raises a lot of questions and makes people doubt India's security practices in its culture critical infrastructure. This is especially alarming because after the 2001 parliament terror attacks, the Indian government instituted a lot of really strict measures regarding its security in parliaments. And according to the new rules, they issued the use of CCTV cameras, RFIDs on parliament cars, issuing photo IDs to visitors. And they also inculcated measures to deflate tires if ever needed, and barricades on approaching roads, and the closing of the two main parliament gates, and ensuring that the visitors entering the parliament did not carry anything on them. So it's also so shocking because this is the new high security parliament building inaugurated this year only. So and the parliament complex itself has its own security personnel for protection inside the building, and it has paramilitary personnel providing a second ring outside the building, and Delhi police also forming a third outer ring. Uh, so, despite these measures, the fact that two visitors were able to sneak in small gas canisters in their shoes and the fact that it did not set off the metal detectors is the failure of our security measures. So, it clearly shows that our security protocols aren't robust enough to withstand such physical incursions or even cyber crimes for that matter. So, when we compare this to the terror attacks in the parliament in 2001, it becomes a matter of response and measures. Although, like what happened in 2001 was extremely grave and the intentions were very different, but at the time, within 3 days, a discussion was held by the Rajya Sabha where the PM delivered a statement and the Home Minister addressed the Lok Sabha on the second day. But this time around, there was no statement from the Home Minister Amit Shah, and a lot of MPs from the opposition party were suspended or banned from the Lok and Rajya Sabha for demanding one. So, according to Tuhin Shah, who is a BJP spokesperson, this comparison is a little fallacious and shouldn't be carried out because that was clearly an attack by Pakistan-backed terrorists, whereas this attack was carried out by quote-unquote urban Naxals in close relations with the opposition party. He also said that like the primary onus of what happens inside the parliament is on the Lok Sabha secretariat or the Rajya Sabha secretariat, basically deflecting a bit more responsibility and like citing examples from similar security breaches in 1974 and 1994, where no such statements were demanded by the Home Minister. So there is this sort of taking the situation a little lightly by sort of shrugging off responsibility and making it a political matter rather than addressing it as what it was, a breach of security in one of the most protected complexes in Delhi. So there is still a lot of debate going on about classifying these events under the same umbrella. This security breach was obviously not at the same magnitude as the one that occurred in 2001, where 6 people were killed. But we can only say that because fortunately this breach wasn't violent, and as Aryan said, it was only smoke and no one was injured. But if they attended, they could have caused serious damage, and the gas canisters could have been poisonous, or they could have snuck some other harmful substance. Because essentially, in both these instances, the matter of the fact is the security breach. So to term them as isolated incidents and one as serious and one as not so serious, just because of suspected opposition ties, does not make much sense.
Thank you, Savya. I think it's also interesting to see that because the occurrence of the 2023 attack happened on the same date as the one on 2001, it's also again pressing on to try to give out a message. And I mean, yeah, it shouldn't be viewed as isolated issues. And the bigger issue is breach of security. And that takes us to the third question. MPs could often be or could often be subjected to public scrutiny and attack due to their line of work. Looking at both the attacks, do you think MPs are well protected by the current system? Who would like to answer it? Okay, you can go ahead, Nitya.
Thank you, Harshita. So, just building off of what Aryan and Savya have already very brilliantly mentioned, I would just like to bring the conversation back to, like the question mentions, looking at the current security system that we have and looking at the framework that we're operating in. So, when we're talking about the current system that is supposed to protect MPs, right now it is not just the security breach that we're looking at, it is also the entire current political climate that we're working with in terms of the opposition as well as the ruling party. And I think it might be very useful to look at the sort of placing this incident is in not as an isolated incident like has been mentioned, but also not even looking at as just a security breach, but also looking at it in the current political climate. It's important to raise questions about the kind of reaction and the kind of interventions that are needed by the government as well as the uh, civil members of the nation, that we need to sort of curb security breaches like this. And I think another question that is very prevalent when we look at this entire incident right now is the question of the freedom of speech that is being raised, because not only was this attack extremely had the potential to be extremely dangerous to the members of the parliament, but also when questions were raised about it, the meeting the next day, on the following day, on the 14th of December, in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha was immediately adjourned, and a sort of action was demanded against the BJP MP that provided the visitors passes to the intruders, as well as a statement from Amit Shah, like Savya mentioned, was demanded. But on these demands, the meeting was adjourned in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, as well as it led to a lot of MPs being suspended. So I think it is very important to look at it from the point of view of the magnitude of the curbing of freedom of speech that is prevalent in the nation today, not just in terms of journalism or free speech, and but also in terms of this very fundamental institutional legislative body which is meant to raise questions for public wellness and for public safety. And if an incident like this can occur in the parliament, where the entire point is to have discourses, discussions, and debates about the matters that affect civilians in the country, then how is it how can we place this incident of curbing the demand of a statement from the MPs today? And I think it's very shocking and jarring to see that on a platform such as the parliament, questions about the the very serious security breach are being sort of brushed under the rug and made to look like they're not very serious. And I think the measures that have been taken by now is just the forming of a committee to look into these matters, as well as statements that say that precautionary measures will be taken in the future. And this is very harrowing if you look at it from hindsight, from the 2001 incident. Because of the severity of that incident, this incident could have been just as bad, if not worse. And if I I would like to raise questions about how, in the future, if something more serious happens, what interventions do we have in place, or what guarantee of interventions do we have in place to protect the people of the Lok Sabha and overall in the nation? Because at the end of the day, the legislative body is the foundation of a democratic state that we live in. And I think, in my opinion, looking at all the events from 2001 till now in hindsight, the most important thing that sort of stands out is that who is safe in the current political climate that we live in? Is it the MPs? Clearly not, because of the attacks. But also, following the attacks, who is being protected by the state because of these incidents? And I think the answer is that people who align with the ruling party are safe, and people who don't align with the ruling party are not safe. That's my answer. Thank you.
So yeah, that was a great answer, Nitya. And I think it again brings back the issue, like you stated, the legislative wing of our country is primarily the democratic voice of not just the House, but it's democratic voice of the whole nation. And when such people are vulnerable to threat, especially after something so terrifying that happened in 2001, you would think that the security and upkeeping of such members of the parliament would be taken care of. But for the fact that it isn't, and the fact that it could happen in the future, is a very terrifying thought itself. With that, I think we come to an end for today's roundtable. I think we had a very fruitful discussion. We were able to focus on both the incidents and draw out conclusions and draw out our thoughts. And yeah, I think it was a good discussion. So yeah, we'll see you in the next round.